this? A letter for me.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of TTM Thursdays with Remember the Great Sports. Have four more baseball, I think, maybe baseball. And that's only from the postmarks of where I sent to things, but we've got a few more here. We're going to open up real quick. Sorry about the blurriness. I'm still learning how to do this. But to start, since I have a big one here, if you watched my last video, I talked about how I enjoy sometimes getting the oversized cards signed. So this has to be one of them. I kind of collect them, I guess you would say, because they're pretty cheap. It looks like the envelope didn't make it back again, which is okay, because luckily it didn't get wet. But we have Mr. Andre Thornton. Now, Mr. Thornton is also from the era, and he signed 4, which you can see there. Let me get a little better camera view here. Sorry about the camera work here. I'm strictly amateur. But Mr. Thornton also was a very good player from his era, just like Ben Ogilvy that I mentioned in my last video. But just looking at some of his stats here, he played, it looks like, 14 years in the major leagues. He started out with the Cubs, had a brief stint with the Expos, but it looks like after he got to his third team, the Cleveland Indians, which is what he's probably most known for, in 1982 and 84, he had a couple all-star seasons, won a Silver Slugger Award one of those years. To see some of the stats that he had 33 home runs in 84, he hit 32 in 82, batted a respectable 273 and 271 both those seasons, drove in over 100 in 82 and 99 and 84, so I'm guessing in one of those seasons is why he got the Silver Slugger Award. But very happy to get these back, Mr. Thornton. You are very much appreciated for doing so. And again, 404 from Andre Thornton. Alright. Straighten the camera out here. Sorry. Yeah, good enough. Okay, got another one here. And this one is from Pennsylvania. So we will see what we got here. Okay. This is Joe Grzenda. Hope I'm saying that right. I know may have butchered his name, but Joe was also a former Cardinal, but mainly a Minnesota Twin. But Joe is known as a lefty specialist, I guess would be the best way to describe him in his career. He was a good left-handed reliever out of the bullpen. He spent some time, mainly with the Twins, as I mentioned, and also a season with the Cardinals. Very much appreciated, Mr. Grzenda. And again, I hope I'm saying your name right there. So, 404. Alright, we got another one here. Guess I ought to open it on camera, right? And this one is from Mr. Steve Renko. Now, Steve Renko, I believe I stuck a couple extra in here for him to keep. He, every time I write somebody, if I have them, of course, sometimes I only have 1 or 2, but I always say, hey, in my letter, if you'd like to keep a couple for yourself, feel free to do so. But it looks like he sent them all back signed. I mean, these weren't anything special by any imagination. These were just common run-of-the-mill cards. But I actually had a chance to meet Mr. Renko once. He was also at an event up in the Kansas City area, if I recall. And this event was saying, you know, you only can get a few things signed per player, whatever. There were multiple people there. So I really didn't come too prepared. I only brought like 2 or 3 items per person because that's all I was going to get signed. So I really kind of was very ill prepared. Well, what happened is they really, at this event, they really held it to the 2 for the bigger names that were there. And this was like a Kansas City Royals reunion type of thing. And the bigger names like Frank White, Willie Wilson, they really held the 2. But towards the end of the event, players like Mr. Renko that were there didn't really care about the about the limitations that they were trying to ensue on the fans that were there, and he basically would sign anything and everything that he you put in front of him. Well, I of course only had like 2 or 3 things on me at the time, so that's all I had for him to sign. So I got my 2 or 3 and, you know, thanked him for his time and moved on. But I of course came home and started going through some of my vintage, you know, cards here, and it seemed like every time I picked up a stack I found a Steve Renko card, and it brought me back to, man, if I just would have had those when I went to that event, he could have signed them. So I wrote him a letter, told him I found these, you know, after I saw him at that event, you know, told him that he's more than welcome to keep a couple if he wanted to, and as you can see, he returned them all signed, so I'm pretty happy about that. So thank you, Mr. Renko, and you never know, I might see you again, and I'll thank you in person. Alright, so we got one final one here. And this one is postmarked from California. So we will open this dog up. See what we got here. I think I know who this is, which I'm very, very happy to get back. Because I was, yes it is. I was skeptical of whether or not to send this, and you'll see why in a second. I'm not trying to hide it from you, but let's see. There we go. We'll save that for last. Okay, and this is Mr. Ken Forsch. Ken Forsch, as you know, was a very strong rotation pitcher for the Astros and also for the, Angels after his career. Looking on the back of his 86 Fleer here, looks like he was injured for the 85 season, but going into the 86 season, he had 114 wins and 112 losses. So, excuse me. So he was a good middle of the rotation type of pitcher, it seems, you know, when it was all said and done. But the real reason that I was skeptical writing Mr. Forsch, and this is a story I'm going to share with you, hopefully I don't bore you too much, was this final card. And this is the Big League Brothers card, and I already had it signed by his brother, Bob. Now, if many of you may not be aware, Bob is his younger brother, I believe, and Bob passed away, I want to say about 5 years ago or so, maybe even more than that. But I had this in my collection. I saw Bob in person before, and this happens to be one of the cards I happen to have on me to have him sign. He was a very gracious person. I want to say I met him twice before he passed away in the St. Louis area. He was actually, I want to say, I saw him at some golf tournament at one point, because he really enjoyed golfing, and any of his former St. Louis Cardinal teammates will tell you that. But I want to say he did a brief stint with the independent minor league team, the Gateway Grizzlies, as their announcer. And I was a much younger person than I am now. I was still living at home with my parents, I want to say, at the time. And being I was such a Bob Forsch fan, I had a lot of his cards laying around because I, you know, liked him when I was a kid, actually. I remember, and I don't want to get off too much of on a tangent, but hopefully, you know, you'll enjoy the story. I don't know if you remember back in the day, and somebody, I might be dating myself, but whenever the carnival or the fair came to town, you used to play the game where you'd throw the rings or you'd throw the ping pong balls into a bowl. And I remember myself and my older sisters, we each won fish at the local fair or whatever, and we brought them home. My mom went and bought a fish bowl or two, I don't remember, but we each named our fish after our favorite baseball players. And my older sisters, one is a huge Chicago Cubs fan. She loves the Cubs and, you know, lives and dies, and she was just ecstatic when they won the World Series a couple years ago. She named her fish, I want to say Jody, based off of her favorite player, Jody Davis. My other sister, who liked the Cardinals, named her fish Tommy because she liked Tommy Her. And I named my fish Bob the Fish, or Bob Forsch, I guess you would call it. Now, I don't know if you've ever had beta fish or whatever they were, but usually their lifespan's pretty short. So at least to say a 9-year-old kid or however old I was taking care of a fish, Bob the Fish didn't last too long. So getting back on track, thank you, Mr. Ken Forsch, for finishing off the Big League Brothers card. You know, I'm very happy, you know, that you responded through the mail to me, and I want to thank you for your time. With that being said, thank you for watching another installment of TTM Thursdays. I hope to make a few more videos and post more in the future. Thanks, and I look forward to hearing your comments.